June 25th marks the day that North Korea invaded South Korea 72 years ago, triggering the Korean War. Around 140,000 South Korean soldiers were killed in action and around 450,000 others injured. More than 1.9 million people from 22 countries, including the United States, Britain, Canada and Turkey, came to South Korea's defense. And among them, over 37,000 were killed and more than 100,000 wounded, according to government figures. An armistice in 1953 ended the fighting, but no peace treaty has ever been signed, and the two Koreas remain at war and very much divided along the 38th parallel. While war has become an everyday reality for South Koreans, with most young people feeling desensitized to it, it's with sad irony that it's remembered for being a forgotten war around the world. Well, today we connect with someone who has gone out of her way to remember and honor Korean War veterans, visiting countries that participated in the Korean War to thank and interview those who fought. Hannah Kim is the founder of Remember 77, a media expert and activist. Hannah has traveled a total of 132,000 miles across 6 continents in 30 countries between 2017 and 2019, just a span of 2 years. And while she's also the official ambassador of the Korean War Veterans Memorial Foundation USA, which is currently also raising funds to add a physical wall of remembrance to the National Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C., from where she joins us. And hello to you, Hannah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Soo-young.
And well, first of all, to our viewers, we just want to introduce what really triggered this 132,000-mile journey that you made around the world to seek out Korean War veterans.
Well, when I first came to Washington, D.C. in 2007, I was a grad student, and that's when I first visited the Korean War Veterans Memorial here. It is so beautiful, and quite frankly, I was so embarrassed that as a Korean and American, I did not know that more than 36,000 Americans died for me, our country, my mother country, and that the war still has not ended. And I was just adamant about doing something about it. And I quite didn't know what to do, but I just knew that in Washington, D.C., everybody talked about passing a bill. And I said, well, I want to pass a bill that would make July 27th, the Korean War Armistice Day, a day, a official day in America to remember the Korean War veterans. So I lobbied a Korean War veteran member of Congress who later became my boss, Congressman Charlie Rangel, and officially on July 27, 2009, President Obama signed the bill into law.
And well, when you made that very big first step in this journey, it was a step that stretched on for 132,000 miles. And well, that was 2 years of your life. And I can't imagine it was easy planning for this and actually seeing it through. What were some difficulties that you faced, and what really made it worthwhile to keep you going?
Sure. So after I served the congressman for almost 7 years, I realized I'm not getting young. The veterans are not getting any younger. So this is where I need to go travel and collect their stories before it's too late. A lot of people would think a normal person would have the logistics figured out with the itinerary and where they're going to be sleeping, whom they're going to be meeting and when. I actually just have bought the plane tickets to around the world, and that was pretty much it. So as I was going, I was emailing the next country, the countries after. Hi, my name is Hannah Kim. I am coming to your country because I want to just simply thank you and meet veterans and interview you. Can you meet? And you know what, Soo-young? I call them, I call all the Korean War veterans around the world my grandpas, but I call these strangers who helped me along the way my angels, because people believed in the mission and people wanted to help.
Well, it's incredible, really. There I was thinking that you had this meticulous plan all around the world, flights booked, everything down to the minutes, but angels along the way helped you through, and well, that's amazing, really.
You're thinking where I was going to be sleeping the next country, yes.
Wow, well, it's been 72 years since the Korean War broke out, and unfortunately here in the country, generations have changed and many young people are becoming desensitized to the tragedy that broke out 72 years ago. And well, what would you tell them? What would you say is the reason that it still matters for us, the younger generation?
Yes, well, I was young when I started this journey, but people don't think it's relevant to them anymore because it happened, 72 years ago. But I'd like to remind them, and this is why it's called Remember 727, maybe less Remember 625, Yu-Gi-Oh in Korean, because 727 is the armistice day, the day that, the ceasefire agreement was signed. Still on the Korean Peninsula, we don't have lasting peace. The two countries are still separated. And that means more than millions of families are still divided, and many have yet to see their loved ones cross the border. And it's our responsibility. Our grandfathers fought and shed blood in this war. Our parents' generation, they made Korea to become an international giant. So maybe it's our responsibility to ensure there's some kind of peace and resolution on the peninsula.
And whenever we remember this war, especially on global media abroad, it's always mentioned for being forgotten, and it's really tragic, really. Well, you've been highlighting the importance of the Korean War, though, abroad in America, all around the world. And, well, it's quite obvious why South Koreans and North Koreans should care about it, but why should the world care about it?
Sure, because this Korean War is actually the real world war because of its global impact and scale. Not a lot of people know that Ethiopia participated in this Korean war, Turkey participated, and as far as Colombia, a Latin American country. And, when I went to Ethiopia, I know that in Korea right now, there are many Ethiopians living in Korea. And when I went to Turkey, they called me like their second, our brothers, Korean brothers and sisters. And even here in America, when I meet an Ethiopian American, they tell me that our ancestors fought in the Korean for your country. And, it really just highlights the fact that despite our differences, we are actually, united by and bonded by this desire for peace and love and freedom.
And you've been following this global trail of this connection that really ties us together. It's a trail of blood, really, all the sacrifices that were made in order to turn South Korea into the modern day state that it is. And while following the stories of all these veterans around the world, how did this experience change you?
First of all, I was so humbled. Like I said, here I am just showing up and thinking, I just want to simply say thank you. And I would bow to them like the Korean way. I would get on my knees and bow, and not a single, veteran would not be shedding tears. And, they here I am thinking, just simply trying to thank them, and they thank me for not forgetting them and for thanking them. And so many, I love the song Arirang. It is my favorite song. And guess what? Around the world, Korean War veterans, after 70 years, they remember the hymn. They remember this the tune, and they would sing it. They say, "I still remember an ache." And not only, I also learned that all around these countries, there are Koreans all over, and they, in their respective countries, in their small communities, they've been reaching out to the local Korean War veterans and really being the ambassadors of peace and hope in their respective countries. So I learned again that, we learned even during COVID that we are separated, but at the same time, we're all really connected. And if what happens in one country really does affect the whole world. So I hope that more people would take interest in helping to promote peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Well, as that traditional folk song still resonates with those war veterans, we South Koreans live and breathe in the sacrifices that they made 72 years ago. And, well, very unfortunately, we are losing more and more of our war heroes to time, really. And we recently lost Colonel William Weber, the US Korean War hero. Now, how can we really show our gratitude and remember them as they should be remembered, especially now that we are losing more and more Korean War veterans.
Yes, Colonel Weber was, my grandfather, my grandpa, and a hero. He was a double amputee who lost an arm and a leg in the Korean War, but he fought till the very last day to make sure that his fallen comrades are remembered by, making sure that this wall of remembrance that would list the names of more than 36,000 who died in the Korean War be erected in the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C. And, after I went around the world, I came back and I went to his house and we had lunch. And I said, Colonel Weber, what's happening with the Wall of Remembrance? And he said, because due to the lack of funds, we weren't making any progress. We're not making any progress. And that's when I knew, I said, oh my gosh, I think I know what I'm going to do. And that's why I went all around all 50 states, almost 100 cities, including the far territories of Guam, American Samoa, and also visited Korea. Korea has about 30 memorials across the country that pay tribute to veterans all over the world that died in Korea. And so I would like to encourage everyone, do what you can to honor their sacrifices and to remember them, because many of the veterans, they don't expect anything from us but just be remembered and not forgotten.
Well, I think you gave the project to build the War of Remembrance the push that it really needed, and very quickly too. I mean, it's going to be completed quite soon, isn't it?
Correct. This coming July 27th is the dedication ceremony. We are so excited. I only wish that Colonel Weber would be with us in person, but I know he will be smiling down from above.
And well, previously you, as you mentioned, you lobbied people in Congress to pass the Wall of Remembrance Act in 2016. You also created your charity, your foundation, and you helped get July 27th officially designated as National Korean War Veterans Armistice Day in the United States. And of course, you made this global trek to make the voices of our war heroes heard, interviewing more than 400 of those veterans. And well, you've done so many for this cause, but what is your next project?
Well, I don't want to call it a project. I always call it my lifelong mission. Well, technically, a lot of people also think that this is my job. It is not my job. I have a separate job. I work in the government right now as well. But this is something that I'm passionate about. And so I want to encourage everybody, you don't have to, start a foundation. You don't have to pass any bills, but you can do something, meaning if you're in Korea, or if you're in other countries that participated in the Korean War, seek the veterans out and record their stories, because that's what we have, their memories and their legacy.
Is there anything you would like to say to our viewers now on behalf of these Korean War veterans?
Yes, my lifelong mission and vision is that, all around the world on July 27th, we will commemorate this very, very special day. And lastly, I want to tell everybody, you do not have to travel 132,000 miles like I did. You don't have to, visit other countries. Just find somewhere where you are to honor the Korean War veterans. We have so many Korean war veterans in Korea as well, your 할아버지s. So just tell them, say thank you, simply. Even that would mean so much, especially on June 25th.
And thank you very much, Hannah Kim, for raising awareness about this. That was Hannah Kim, founder of Remember 727 and ambassadress of the Korean War Veterans Memorial Foundation USA. Thank you so much for your time today and the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me.